Hey everyone, JVD here from the Villains Man, bringing you another comic book review over Batman Endgame, issues 35 through 40 under the New 52 Rebirth banner. And by God, this is a hell of a story. Um, it's really great. I cannot recommend reading it enough, especially if you're a fan of the Joker. And this kind of plays up to the point of the Joker that I like the best. One time I used to be really big on the Marvel boards on Marvel.com, and one time someone had asked the question, "What makes the Joker such a great villain?" And everybody kept all this murderer stuff and whatnot. The Dark Knight had just come out not too long after that, before that, and everybody was real big on the Heath Ledger Joker. And I had said, what makes the Joker such a good villain? It's not that he's mad or that he's this mass murderer, that he's psychotic. It's the fact that the greatest detective in the world, Batman, cannot figure out who he is. And this story kind of plays into the origin or a possible origin of the Joker. We're not really sure. But it gives you a lot of insight to the character and how he's able to withstand the punishment that he's always withstood throughout his history. And it really leads into a major confrontation between him and Batman at the end of the book, and it is really, really good. I cannot recommend reading it enough. Um, this is Scott Snyder writing it. He's wrote this whole New 52 run, and all these stories, and they almost seem like there's a break in between them, starting with the whole Court of the Owl stuff, have been awesome. And it's what he's writing is some of the best Batman stuff you're ever going to read. If you've not read any of it and want a good idea of it, I did the Court of the Owl stuff with Hero Man and Evan the Great. We got Death of the Family, which is the last time we actually see the Joker before this, which is odd because now his face is healed up. He doesn't have his face cut off like he had in the beginning of the Detective Comics for the New 52, in which kind of gives you an explanation of how that had happened. I've covered all the 0 Year stuff, Savage City, Secret City, Dark City, which in Secret City you've kind of got the origin of the Red Hood and what kind of led to him becoming the Joker. But if you haven't checked any of that stuff, check it out. But kind of get to some spoilers. If you haven't heard of the Justice Buster, which is Batman's kind of Iron Man suit to take on the Justice League, this is where it shows up at, which is called Planet Fenrir, which is for Norse mythology. I think that is the giant wolf that is a child of Loki, if I'm correct. It's kind of different in Marvel, depending on if you go by the MCU or the comics, but I do believe that's what that is. But anyways, book starts off, and this is what it is. It's just there's some really good foreshadowing. We were talking about after 0 Year, where one of the first things they wanted to do was rebuild the, I guess the theater to kind of give the Gothamites something to look forward to kind of uplift their spirits. It's talking about, I forget what play it was, but they were setting up some rigging for like this angel to descend, and during the fight, eventually Superman does descend. This fight takes place in the theater between him and Batman, and some good foreshadowing. And then even the armor that we talk about is seen at the very last page of the book. So really good foreshadowing. But anyways, Batman winds up first being attacked by Wonder Woman. And one thing I don't get is Wonder Woman literally smashes his face through the floor where he's at, like in this hospital, right? And proceeds to beat him down. So right there just shows you if Batman is just peak human, how does he survive that? Because Wonder Woman is actually out to kill him here. And if I sound off, I've fought off code for the last couple days, so kind of forgive me here. But anyways, in this Justice Buster, what he has to defeat her, and this is kind of from the book, it's a relic called the Bind of Veils, and it was woven by Hephaestus. I don't know, it's some Greek god. Check it out. I don't read Greek mythology all that much, even though I enjoy it. In a moment of doubt, not long after he forged her lasso, that is a lasso of truth, he used an inverted version of the same weave. It is said to be made from wool from the sheep Odysseus' men used to trick the Cyclops. It took me nearly 2 years to track it down on the magical black market. This isn't just the suit isn't just armor, it's designed for war with the most powerful heroes on the planet. Now, at this time, he has realized there's a gas that has been spread through Gotham. And the Joker has used this gas, I should say, it's not spread through Gotham, he's kind of taken over the Justice League. And Batman spreads this gas through a section of Gotham to clear out the citizens, just so he can have this fight with the Justice League. So no one gets hurt. It's pretty interesting. It just shows you how much Batman relies on prep time. After this, he takes the Flash down, and he continues to talk about this Justice Buster. I put more money into the suit than about 60% of the world's nations put to their respective militaries. And a good portion of that money went towards a protocol for one man, making sure that the servers are fast enough for him, faster than any human reaction, fast enough to map his movements assuming it wasn't at optimal speed, and then fire frictionless coding exactly where it needs to be, which this is how he takes out the Flash, which makes him slide, and I'm assuming knocking himself out into a building, because he winds up crashing into one. Next, Aquaman attacks him, and he puts him in this foam. The foam is made of powdered magnesium carbonate. It's the most absorbent material on Earth, covered in so many pores that a single gram has nearly 800 meters of surface area. Bottom line, the more you struggle, the more moisture it rips from your body. Now look at me. Tell me who did this. And this at the time does not realize that the Joker's done it until he's attacked by Superman. He is Batman, duh. So Superman shows up, and they start having this massive brawl, which eventually takes them to the theater for the foreshadowing, because Superman slams him into it. He kind of descends on him, and he asks him, "You like the Knuckles, Clark?" Each pod contains microscopic red suns collected from dead solar systems with the aid of Dr. Ray Palmer. I call them red giants. Now you're going to shake this thing, even if I have to beat the hell out of it. And that's when he realizes that it's Joker, because Superman starts laughing at him. So this is the Justice Buster. This is how this whole story opens up. It's the Joker taking over the Justice League, which kind of shows you the insight into the intelligence of the Joker when it comes to chemical compounds, especially if it's enough to take over Superman. But it's kind of an aspect of the Joker that I don't like. I like him being a street-level villain, but as this story unfolds, you realize that there might just be way more to the Joker than what we have ever realized. But eventually, this fight goes on, and he rips the Justice Buster from Batman, and he's going to take him up in orbit. And he spits in Superman's eye, and he tells him, he says it's a butadiene. I don't know. I'm not based on science, but a base synthetic rubber polymer laced with radioactive kryptonian dust. And it's Batman. He's got to have some kryptonite for Superman. Alfred calls it kryptonite gum. I call it a pellet in the suit's helmet. Who wins in a fight? The answer is always the same. Neither of us. Right there, that will show you as they fall into the ocean that Batman and Superman in continuity have always come to a draw, or he's never beaten Superman. So therefore, all them bat nuts will know, hey, he's never really beat him one-on-one in a fight. He gets his ass whooped here and has to rely on some gum to spit in his eye just to stop him. But anyways, as the story goes, he realizes that's a Joker. He's trapping him down, and he gets caught in Arkham. And then you learn that Eric Borders, who showed up in Batman Annual 2, is actually the Joker. And he's been working in Arkham Manor this entire time. And this is where Batman realizes something's wrong, because his face is healed. And he unleashes this virus in Gotham. It's airborne. It spreads pretty quickly, causing everybody to laugh and basically have aggression towards the ones they feel affection to. And it gets so bad that the U.S. military quarantines all of Gotham. And there's a really cool spot in this that, because the villains start to side up with him, he kind of forces them to. And they're talking about, Gordon tells him, you don't even want to know what Two-Face has done. And it made me wonder to the point that maybe when Two-Face was affected with this, the twisted side of him was trying to kill the more human side of him and vice versa. So it really doesn't go into detail, but that's how my mind worked when I read this, when Gordon's telling this to Batman. So I thought, wow, that's kind of an interesting concept. If you're aggressive toward the things that you're most affectionate to, and them two rely on each other to live, and they're kind of the same person, just the twisted sides, the inner workings of Harvey Dent, and he cared about it, would he try to kill himself? So I thought that was really interesting. But anyways, Batman goes to the pedestrian, and Gordon says it's haunted. And it's an old church. And he's looking at old photos online at this time. And this is kind of where you start to realize this origin of the Joker. And at this time, in the back of each book, you're getting stories from some inmates who's escaped that Joker has worked with, as Eric Brooks of Borders, excuse me. And they're taking this doctor around there, each kind of telling the origin. Now, at this time, Gordon is just like, oh my God, he's in all these old pictures. And he's trying not to believe it. And even there's a picture where he's got a picture of his kids where they have their tonsils taken out. And in the background, you can barely see the Jokers in the shadows. And this is where they're trying not to believe that the Joker has been around forever, but yet there he is. Now, in the back of these books, you're getting a lot of story, and they're all about Maureen Zahir, who we've learned, who has been working with Eric Borders. She doesn't realize the Joker. And each one of the patients has a story that the Joker's told them about his origin. And they're all trying to figure out which one is right. And as they're trying to survive the chaos of Gotham, and they're taking her to where the Joker wants her, they're each telling a story. And one guy, Ephraim, tells her that the Joker was a devil that showed up 20 years ago. And every time he dies, he comes back from the hell that's under Gotham. Cordelia tells her that he made her believe, well, he told her that her husband had a chip placed in him. Eventually, he gained the love of her kids, put a chip in him, and she didn't want to believe that they were actually robots like the Joker. And so she killed them all. Morton tells a story about the steam age that he heard from his mom when the Joker first came to Gotham. And he was trying to make the people of Gotham laugh because everybody was so stressed out. All they did was work. It was a very dark place. And in his first night, he killed 6 people in all the factories that he visited. So the people of Gotham hunted him down almost like Frankenstein's monster. And they burned his hideout, which he come out laughing and juggling, riding a unicycle. And basically, he died on that spot. So you learn that that spot of land was sold to a chemical company, which I'm going to assume is Ace Chemical, where actually the Red Hood fell into the vat and supposedly became the Joker. And basically, the laughing from Gotham from that day forward, because he had started laughing, is actually what brings the Joker back to life, which I thought was a really interesting one. Cassidy, we learned, worked for the military to train to be Batman with others. He thought it was a government conspiracy to take control. The Joker, when they were looking for Batman, left a battering because he knew that Cassidy would believe him and he would help tell his story. And he let him know that he was going to change Gotham by tearing it down. And then at the end, we find out that the actual Miss Chin, her story is for the book signing, which we learned that Marine found out that Joker was actually William Ditzel, which goes back to Secret City, where he messed up the DNA of the original Red Hood that he had killed. And this is where she finds out that Eric had told her this, and that Joker made her believe the story that she actually wanted to believe as he shows up. And so all these inmates from Arkham are trying to break the door down that she's barricaded herself in as she's talking to the Joker. And they all have to know whose story is the real story. And Joker gives her a revolver with 5 bullets and tells her that she can decide who has a real story, but gives her an extra bullet just in case they're all false. Then we hear the gunshot go off as they break through. She's killed herself. So that's pretty twisted. And it's also interesting to know that you don't get the origin of the Joker here. Which one of these stories is actually real? And we've seen Gordon with these pictures that he's looked up online. So you begin to question, how old is the Joker? And you look at Morton's story and Ephraim's story about how the Joker was the Pale Man, which is something we learn later on from this doctor that helped the Joker create this virus. It makes you kind of think that maybe those 2 stories have a lot to do with his origin. But anyways, to find out who created this virus, Batman has to rely on the Court of Owls, who have been there long since almost before Gotham was built. And you learn that this thing is called Dionysium, based off of the god Dionysus, and it is why people flock to Gotham, especially theirs. But it's corrupted, and they send them to this doctor, whose name is, I cannot find his name off the top of my head, but he's got all these pictures. I've got all these pictures here. But anyways, he's kind of figured out that the Electrum that the Court of Owls uses for the Talons is kind of got a corrupted version of this. And then you learn that the Lazarus Pit that Ra's al Ghul has is a corrupted version of this. And the only pure version that they know of, and this doctor knows of, is in the Joker's spine. And basically what this stuff does, it gives you a regenerative property. And this is what keeps people alive throughout these ages. So the question is, we know that Ra's al Ghul basically is almost immortal, at least for 600 years, maybe. And he's been taking this, and this is what keeps the Court of Owls Talons alive. Obviously, this is what's been keeping the Joker alive every time he gets beat up by Batman. But the question is, how long has the Joker been around? What's the truth? And basically, as Batman goes to this doctor, the doctor asks him, he says, you want to know a secret, Batman? For a long time, I thought you were one, older than Gotham, Barbados. It's why I did the terrible things I did. Quilting life abnormally, just to meet you, but then I realized I did meet you, and you were just flesh and blood. So he thought he was one of these things. We don't know what these things are at the moment, these Barbados, and kind of makes you wonder if the Joker's one. Exactly what are these things, and how long have they been around? Because he says they're older than Gotham. We know that Ra's al Ghul's older than Gotham. We know the Court of Owls have been around at least as long as Gotham. Excuse me. And he even talks about that, the people who encountered the chemical long ago still walk among us here in Gotham. I've heard a few stories. There's the Savage, who amongst the oldest men alive, which I'm assuming is a Vandal Savage. Excuse me, which even plays into more to these immortal people on the earth. And he encountered it in its rawest form. And then there's a man like a demon who keeps pulls of the chemical, Ra's al Ghul. So you're starting to learn that this Dionysium has almost been around forever, and the Joker has it. And the purest form is in his spine, which I find very interesting. Now there, when Batman had visited the Court of Owls, and he had seen their outline of Gotham, and he memorized some stuff, which we find out later. And he brings it down. He winds up fighting a guy called Uriah Boone, who's one of the first Talons. He's 400 years old. Excuse me. And he even asked him about the Joker. And you don't get an answer at that time, but apparently the Talons cannot lie. And I don't know if he ever really told Batman the story of the Joker. And if I missed this, because there's so much going on in the story. But as I recall, he doesn't tell him about anything about the Joker. And it leads to more of it being a mystery. But eventually, Joker finds his way to the Batcave. And he winds up cutting off Alfred's arm after getting shot with a shotgun from Alfred. And that just shows you, this kind of shows you where the Dionysium comes into play with the Joker. And how he's able to take so much more damage. And this is what I found was really, really interesting. If you go back to Death of the Family, which I've already reviewed if you'd like to watch that, Joker kept playing mind games with Batman about how he knew everybody. And he never had called anybody by name, but yet he called all the Bat family. And they're sitting there in the caves below Gotham, around the Bat Cave. And eventually Batman kinds of plays mind games, gets the upper hand, and he drops him off a cliff into the cliffs out by the Batcave. And Batman had believed, when he'd found the Joker's card years ago, that the Joker had actually got a hold of his boat and had come back with him. And so this makes me question about how much did the Joker see at that time? Because now he actually knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne. He calls him Brucey when he's here at the Batcave, and he knows about Alfred, and he knows about Tim and Dick and Jason and Barbara. in which he's already had the confrontation with Barbara, and he's already killed Damien at this time. So, did he actually know about the Batcave then? Did he actually come in there during that story when Bruce had seen the playing card? Because even there when he gets in the Batcave, because they're in the caves during that story, he even finds the Red Hood thing, the helmet, and he says, "Oh, you kept it," and he's kind of excited. And he even references back that how, it should have just been them two. And now this is why he's come back, because he chose his family over the Joker. And this is kind of why this is his last hurrah. He's out to kill Batman here. But anyways, so it never really shows you how he figured out that Batman and Bruce Wayne were the same person. So maybe that's a story for another day. But anyways, like I said, Batman has to get all the villains to team up with him, and they go to take on the Joker, because he's got to get some of this dynesium out of his spine so he can find a cure. Well, he winds up tricking him, using Dick to be Batman, while he goes to the caves below Gotham to find this pit that the Joker's been using full of dynesium so he can get a cure. Anyways, they have this knockout, drag-out brawl, and he realizes that the Joker's quicker. The Joker's got these two knives, and he is messing Batman up. And he starts to play these mind games with Batman. He tells him, excuse me, "How do you know this entire time, basically, that I haven't been playing with you? That this was all just a joke, that I've always been quicker than you, that I've always been stronger, that I've always been better." And basically, he messed Batman up, and they have this huge fight. And basically, he's got Batman. Batman has him to the point where Joker's trying to get to this pit of dynesium. And Batman's going to let them both die, because he sends some of the dynesium from his spine up top side so they can make a cure. And basically, that they die, which, of course, they're not going to die. They're two of DC's more popular characters. But that's how they leave you to believe that both of them have left after their death. And anyways, the book kind of carries up months later, but there's some good monologue between Alfred and his daughter here when they're talking about Batman. And basically, they talk about Batman being flawed, and Alfred questions her, and he says, "Look," and this is how it goes at the end of the book. He tells him he never liked to look at his own death, Julia. He only thought of preventing it. But the last few days, I know he had to look at it many times, in many ways. I hope he was, and always has been, that somehow, seeing it, understanding it, would lead him to find a way out. I've always known he would never quit, but perhaps, at least, like you said, he might find some greater prevention, some escape. But that's foolish, and it's why he was wrong to tempt Batman with a happy ending. It's what he never really understood about Batman, with his offers of immortality and transcendence. It's the only thing that Bruce knew to be true about Batman, more than anything else. The thing we all know deep down, but don't like to admit, that the story of Batman's is and always will be a tragedy. Bruce will never have let it be anything else. Batman could live forever. He could escape, but he doesn't. He dies, just like every one of us, even though he doesn't have to. That's his flaw. But it's also his greatest strength, the very thing that makes him immortal. He says we're in this together. He says, live bravely in the time you have and smile at the void. That's why the note says what it does, why it's his only word, why Batman's last message is and always will be. And obviously I cut this off. But anyways, it's a very, that's my mistake. It's a very good monologue about why Bruce is Batman and why he doesn't seek out to have superpowers. It's a very good way to end the story. And at the end of the story, you see the armor that was showed at the theater at the very beginning. Like I said, the beginning of this was really good foreshadowing. But lots of questions that still need answers. Obviously, we know that Batman and Joker will return. But we have this Barbados thing. Is the Joker one of these things? How did the Dynesium show up in Gotham? How did it actually show up in the world? Who actually has it? We know Vandal Savage is immortal, so I guess they're hinting that this is what's been keeping him alive. Obviously, we knew the Lazarus Pit was keeping Ra's al Ghul alive, so we obviously know that's what he has. And it's, how long has the Joker been alive? you know, putting off that he's immortal and he's actually much stronger and quicker than what he's always led on to believe. But it's a good reason to show how he can go toe-to-toe with Batman. But the real question is, what is the Joker? Is he this devil that he claims to be? Is he this reoccurring specter that is brought to life by the laughters of Gotham? Which I really like that one too. Obviously, he's not a robot. Obviously, he's not this man named William that he fooled everybody to believing that he was when Batman killed the Red Hood in Ace Chemical. And that's a really good thing that I brought up. Maybe that's what the Ace Chemical was that Joker as the Red Hood fell into. Maybe it was corrupted Dionysium. Maybe that's what they were looking for Ace Chemical. So maybe that's something we'll see in the future. Like I said, there's a really lot of questions here with the Joker that I think fans have always wanted to know, and this just gives you more insight and more questions to ask. But I'm JVD. This has been my review for Batman Endgame. Hopefully you'll like, comment, subscribe on the video. Keep reading, guys.